All right, let's talk about inflation. But forget the boring economic statistics you see on the news for a second. We're going to talk about what it actually feels like. This is a story about psychology, about memory, and about why everything just feels so much more expensive these days. So let's pull back the curtain on the real psychology of price. You know the feeling. You're in the grocery store, you grab your favorite bag of chips or cookies, and you think to yourself, this feels a little lighter than I remember. The price is the same, but something's just off. Well, let me tell you, you're not imagining things. It's a real phenomenon, and it's got a name. And this gets us to the very first piece of the puzzle. It's a kind of inflation that hides in plain sight. It's a subtle, sneaky change that companies are literally betting you won't even notice. Yep, it's called shrinkflation. And it is absolutely a deliberate strategy. See, when a company's costs go up, they've got a choice. They can raise the price, which they know we will notice and get mad about, or they can just give us a little less stuff for the same price. And all the research shows they know we're way more likely to complain about a price hike than we are about a slightly smaller package. And once you see it, you'll see it everywhere. Remember the great Toblerone scandal when those giant gaps appeared between the chocolate triangles? That was shrinkflation. Pringles cans getting just a little bit thinner, Cadbury yanking 2 fingers from the pack, even Ben& Jerry's quietly shrinking its tubs. It's a pretty clever way to pass costs onto us without having to change that all-important price tag. But here's the thing. Shrinkflation is just a symptom. It's not the real disease. To understand the engine that's really driving all of this, we have to look beyond the grocery store. And, well, we have to look inside our own heads. Because this is all built on a seriously powerful psychological force. It's called inflationary psychology. This is that critical moment when our expectation that prices are going to keep going up starts to change how we behave right now. You know the feeling, right? If you think that new laptop is going to be more expensive next month, what do? You feel this pressure to buy it today to lock in the price. And this kicks off a really dangerous feedback loop. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It starts simple. Prices go up a little bit. We all see it, and we start thinking, uh-oh, they're only going to get higher. So what do? We start spending our money faster, trying to beat the next price hike. But when millions of us do that all at once, that massive surge in demand is the very thing that pushes prices up even more. Our collective fear literally becomes reality. Now, this power of collective belief is so strong, it can shape how an entire country thinks about money for generations. And often, it's all based on one single, powerful, traumatic memory. But here's the tricky thing about memory. It's not always as accurate as we think. The classic case study for this is Germany's deep, deep-seated fear of inflation. It's always traced back to the Weimar Republic in the 1920s. We've all seen the famous pictures, right? People with wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. But what if that economic ghost story, the one that has influenced decades of policy, is actually based on a massive misunderstanding? Okay, just look at this chart. It tells the real story. Follow the solid line, that's inflation. See how it just goes vertical in 1923? I mean, completely off the charts. That's the hyperinflation everybody remembers. But now, look at the dotted line. That's unemployment. While inflation was exploding, unemployment was actually pretty low. The real catastrophe, the mass unemployment, that didn't hit until almost a decade later, around 1932. And here is the craziest part. During that crisis, prices were actually falling. It was deflation. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Over time, the powerful national memory didn't remember 2 separate disasters. Instead, it blended them together. The collective memory basically fused the wiped-out savings from 1923 with the mass unemployment of 1932 into one single terrifying economic monster. So let's be crystal clear about this. 1923 was a crisis of hyperinflation. It destroyed people's savings, but most people still had jobs. 1932, on the other hand, was a crisis of deflation, of falling prices. That caused unimaginable unemployment. And it was that second crisis, the no-jobs crisis, that directly led to the collapse of Germany's democracy. This historical mix-up has echoed for decades, often making policymakers far more afraid of inflation than of unemployment. Now, this whole story isn't just a history lesson about Germany. It actually reveals a universal truth about the money in your pocket right now. Its entire value is resting on something incredibly fragile. Almost all the currency in the world today is what's called fiat money. That's just a fancy term that means it isn't backed by a physical thing, like a vault full of gold. A $20 bill is, at the end of the day, just a piece of paper. The only thing that gives it value is our shared belief that it has value. It's a social contract. As long as we all agree it's worth something, it is. But that trust can be broken. And man, history is just a graveyard of currencies where that trust has disappeared. During the American Revolution, the continental dollar was printed so much it became worthless. Same thing happened in France after their revolution. We already talked about Germany. And then you have modern examples like Zimbabwe in 2008, where inflation got to a number so high it's basically meaningless. The pattern is always the same. When people lose faith in the institution printing the money, that money becomes just paper. So where do people go when that happens? It's called a flight to safety. Historically, it meant running to things you could actually hold, like gold. Or maybe you try to get your hands on a more stable currency, like the US dollar. In the worst cases, people just go back to bartering. But today, there's a new chapter in this old story: the rise of digital assets, like cryptocurrencies, which are basically an attempt to build a new kind of money based on trust in math instead of trust in institutions. Which brings us right back to where we started. All of these different threads, the shrinking candy bars, the mixed-up historical memories, the very nature of money itself, they all tie back to the exact same powerful force. So what's the big takeaway from all this? It's that inflation isn't just some dry academic topic. It's not just about charts and interest rates. It's deeply, deeply human. It's a story we tell ourselves about the future. The value of our money is nothing more than a belief we all share. And our memories, even when they're flawed, can reach out from the past and shape the world we live in today. Which leaves us with one last huge question to think about. If our entire financial system is really just built on a shared story, a collective act of faith, what happens when we start believing in a new story? What comes next? And when we finally decide what that new story is, what will that belief be worth?